Have you ever been so loyal to someone that you started to forget what it felt like to be loyal to yourself? You gave your time, your presence, your soul, only to realize, much too late, that they weren't capable of holding it with care. Here's the harsh truth: not everyone deserves your loyalty. But what happens when they finally realize that? When they wake up one day and feel the unbearable silence where your love used to be? Most people assume regret arrives like a thunderstorm, loud, messy, dramatic. But no. Regret? It creeps in slowly, like a whisper in a quiet room. It haunts. It lingers. It punishes not with volume, but with memory. And that's the part they never saw coming. Let's address a dangerous myth right now. People think that if you stay through the storms, you'll always stay. That forgiveness means forever. That silence means surrender. But what if I told you silence is the loudest boundary you'll ever set? That indifference, not anger, is the final blow? In Stoic Relationships, real strength is not about how long you endure mistreatment. It's about the moment you decide that your peace is more sacred than their chaos. This isn't just a story about heartbreak. It's about awakening. It's about the exact moment you decided you were done bleeding for someone who never even noticed you were hurt. It's about rebirth through restraint, healing through detachment, and how walking away can be the most transformative thing you'll ever do. Stoicism teaches us that external chaos must never define internal peace. So what happens when you leave? Not to make a scene, but to reclaim your soul. This video isn't just going to speak to you. It's going to cut through the noise you've been drowning in. We're diving deep into the kind of pain that doesn't scream, but echoes. Into the kind of regret that comes not from what was done, but from what was never done, the words never said, the care never shown, the love never reciprocated. Are you ready to see your story with clarity? To recognize how your quiet strength rewrote the narrative? And most importantly, are you ready to stop questioning your worth and start owning your power? Stay with me, because what's coming next isn't just healing, it's revolution. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. 1. The misinterpretation of loyalty. They never truly understood the weight of your presence. To them, it was simply a given: your compassion, your loyalty, your willingness to forgive and overlook their repeated failures were treated like features of the furniture in their lives. Always there, always available, always expected. And that's where the first fracture forms, not in an explosive betrayal, but in the slow, silent erosion of respect. Have you noticed how people begin to value you less the more consistent you are? How they begin to take your kindness as currency they don't need to repay. It's a tragedy of perception. The more you gave without complaint, the more they believed they deserved it. This isn't a mistake of character on your part, it's a misunderstanding of depth. They confused your stillness with stagnation, your forgiveness with permission, your patience with permanence. But in Stoic relationships, the calmest waters often run the deepest. They didn't realize that the very traits they disregarded were the signs of strength: real, resilient, centered strength. Not the fragile kind that yells and breaks at the first blow, but the powerful type that bends without snapping, stays without begging, and loves without needing applause. And in their blindness, they mistook your silence for submission. How many times did you defend them in rooms they didn't even know you were in? How many moments did you bite your tongue, hoping that maybe, just maybe, they'd see how deeply you were carrying their burdens, how far you were stretching yourself just to keep peace alive? But they didn't. They were watching the wrong things. They were measuring your love by your words instead of your actions, by your reactions instead of your endurance. They thought loyalty was a leash you placed around your own neck. They didn't see it as a gift, they saw it as a guarantee. And therein lies the heart of the wound. They never asked themselves, what would happen if they stopped showing up? If they stopped forgiving, stopped understanding, stopped putting me first? Because they assumed that day would never come. They assumed you didn't have an edge. But even the strongest soul has a threshold, and once it's crossed, there's no going back. You see, the core of Stoicism isn't about being emotionally numb. It's about cultivating clarity, the kind that allows you to love deeply while still seeing clearly. And that's what they underestimated. They thought love made you blind. They thought loyalty made you weak. But what they failed to grasp is that you were fully aware all along. You saw their patterns. You heard the words they didn't say. You felt the distance even when they were right next to you. You hoped for change, not because you were foolish, but because you believed in growth, in redemption, in second chances. But they never saw your hope as a shared responsibility. They treated it like your burden to carry alone. And that's the most painful part, isn't it? Realizing that while you were busy holding space for their evolution, they were using that space to grow more careless, more selfish, more entitled. Your endurance became their excuse. Your forgiveness became their shield. They assumed that because you stayed after the first wound, the second and third wouldn't matter. And when you cried quietly instead of fighting loudly, they told themselves it wasn't that bad. They told themselves you were just sensitive, just emotional. But that's where the Stoic in you lived, in the restraint, in the decision to feel without exploding, to hurt without harming, to stay without surrendering your soul. And now, in hindsight, they look back and realize, every act of quiet loyalty was actually a test. Every time you chose peace over conflict, grace over bitterness, understanding over retaliation, it wasn't weakness. It was strength. It was choice. It was you saying, "I'm here, but don't mistake this for blindness." But they did. Because they had a flawed definition of power. They thought power came from dominance, from being right, from being loud, from being in control. They didn't understand the kind of power you carried, the kind that forgives without forgetting, that stays grounded when everything is spinning, that walks away not to punish, but to preserve. And when you finally left, not with a speech, not with fireworks, but in the same silence you had loved them with, it was then they began to understand. That what they mistook for passivity was actually discipline. That your loyalty wasn't a contract, it was a gift. And once given too freely, it had to be reclaimed. So now they sit in the void. Not just of your absence, but of their own failure to see what was sacred. They're not haunted by your anger. They're haunted by your restraint. By all the times you could have exploded and didn't. By all the chances they didn't even know you gave. And now it's too late. You've outgrown the version of yourself who kept trying. And they're left trying to explain to themselves how they lost someone who would have walked through fire for them. But in Stoic relationships, there comes a moment when the fire stops being purifying and starts becoming destructive. And when you reach that moment, you didn't scream. You simply turned around. That silence? It echoes now. Not just through the rooms you once filled, but through every interaction they now have. No one listens the way you did. No one stays the way you stayed. No one forgives the way you forgave. And now they realize, they weren't entitled to that kind of presence. They were lucky to have it. And they threw it away believing it would always come back. But you're gone. Not emotionally distant. Not temporarily frustrated. Gone. And they finally see that loyalty in the wrong hands isn't a bond, it's a sentence. And you? You finally chose release. You chose peace over potential. Truth over attachment. Dignity over desperation. That's not bitterness. That's stoicism. That's freedom. That's power. That's the beginning of everything they never thought you'd become. And everything they now realize they'll never get back. 2. The slow death of a one-sided connection. Have you ever found yourself holding on longer than your own heart wanted, believing that your patience and love could change someone? It's a question we all wrestle with, especially in the realm of Stoic relationships, where endurance is often mistaken for an invitation to stay in pain. You stayed longer than you should have, not out of blindness, but because you believed in potential for growth, for healing, for transformation. But did they ever ask themselves what it cost you? Did they ever see how the constant giving without receiving was slowly draining the life out of you? This slow decay is invisible at first, like a gentle poison seeping through the veins of a connection that once held promise. You were the anchor, but they treated you like an option, a convenience, someone who could be leaned on endlessly with no expectation of reciprocity. How often did you make excuses for their behavior? How many times did you swallow the sharp sting of disappointment just to keep the peace? Because hope is a tricky thing. It blinds us with the light of possibility even when shadows are gathering. They thought your loyalty was their safety net, that your forgiveness erased every offense, that your presence was guaranteed no matter how deeply they wounded you. But Stoicism teaches us to recognize when endurance becomes self-betrayal. There is a point where patience turns toxic, where love becomes codependency, and hope mutates into denial. You kept believing in their goodness even when it was buried beneath layers of indifference and neglect. They mistook your sacrifices for weakness, your silence for agreement, your staying for acceptance. How often did you question yourself in the mirror, wondering if you were too much or not enough? Did you wonder why your kindness was met with cruelty, your understanding with disregard? The slow death of a one-sided connection is a battle fought silently inside. It's nights when you lie awake, replaying every word and gesture, trying to make sense of why you kept giving your soul away to someone who didn't cherish it. You hoped they would see you, not just the version of you who smiled through the pain, but the true, raw, vulnerable self who deserved love and respect. But instead, they gave you only fragments, half-hearted apologies, fleeting attention, and empty promises. You became the background noise in their life, the constant presence no one really noticed until you were gone. And yet you stayed. Why? Because loving someone is never simple. It's a dance between hope and reality, between forgiveness and boundaries. And the hardest lesson in Stoicism is learning to walk away when loving someone means losing yourself. The slow death you experienced wasn't just about them. It was about you waking up to the truth that you can't pour from an empty cup. It was about realizing that your loyalty was not a license for mistreatment, but a sacred trust that must be honored by both parties. And when it wasn't, it was your soul screaming for rescue, even if your lips never voiced it. Now, as you look back, the silence speaks louder than any argument ever could. You didn't leave because you stopped caring. You left because they never did. They never understood that love without respect is just an illusion, a fragile house built on sand. And when the tides of indifference came, that house crumbled. Their inability to cherish you was their downfall, not yours. The slow death of your connection was a mirror reflecting their own failures, their pride, their entitlement, their inability to see the treasure they held. And when you finally stepped away, it wasn't a surrender, it was a revolution. A declaration that your worth is not negotiable. That you will no longer tolerate being anyone's second choice or afterthought. That the love you give must be reciprocated or it's wasted. This is the power of Stoic relationships, recognizing when to stay and when to leave, when to fight and when to surrender, not out of weakness but out of wisdom. So as you heal and rebuild, remember this: you were never the problem. Their inability to value you was their limitation, not your flaw. The slow death of a one-sided connection is painful, but it's also a doorway to rebirth. To a new chapter where you honor yourself as fiercely as you once honored them. If this message resonates with you, please like and comment, 1, to show your support, and subscribe to the channel for more insights into healing, strength, and the art of Stoicism. Your journey to peace is just beginning, and together we'll walk it with courage and clarity. 3. The final departure, quiet but final. Have you ever wondered what it truly means to leave, not with anger, not with loud declarations, but in a way so quiet that it confounds those who never expected you to walk away? This final departure is the ultimate expression of self-respect, the culmination of countless moments where silence spoke louder than words. It's the point where the soul no longer asks for permission to heal, where the heart refuses to be chained by unmet expectations. In the vast landscape of Stoic relationships, departure is not a failure. It is a boundary set with grace and unshakable resolve. The decision to leave quietly is often misunderstood as weakness or indecision, but in truth, it requires more courage than any dramatic confrontation. Have you noticed how those who mistreated you expected fireworks, confrontation, or vindictive rage? Instead, they are met with a calm that unsettles them because it signals that the power they held over you is gone. The silence that follows your absence is not emptiness. It is a testament to your inner strength, a mirror reflecting their own inability to hold space for your truth. How many times did you warn them, gently and repeatedly, that your patience had limits? Yet, when the moment arrived, they acted surprised, as if loyalty was an infinite resource and love a contract without expiration. But you knew better. You knew that loyalty is sacred, and once it's spent without reciprocity, it becomes self-destructive. Walking away quietly is the clearest message. Your peace matters more than their excuses, your worth is not up for debate, and your journey no longer includes their disregard. This is not an act of revenge but an act of survival, a rebirth from the ashes of betrayal and neglect. You didn't need to shout your departure to make it real. Your absence speaks in volumes they can no longer ignore. Have you felt the power that comes from choosing yourself in a world that taught you to sacrifice endlessly? That power is what they never understood and now fear. The quiet departure is a shock to their system because it breaks the cycle of chaos and control. It denies them the drama they thrived on and leaves them with nothing but the echo of what was lost. What they mistake for weakness is your wisdom. What they call coldness is your peace. And what they see as abandonment is your liberation. In Stoicism, the greatest victories are often silent because they come from within. They come from the realization that you don't need validation from those who failed to see your value. You don't need closure from those who never intended to hold your heart with care. You don't need their apologies to bloom again. Leaving quietly means you've reclaimed your narrative. You've decided that your story is no longer about their mistakes but about your growth. It means you've shed the weight of their expectations and embraced the lightness of self-respect. How often have you caught yourself smiling again after the departure, surprised by how freeing it feels not to carry their burdens? That joy is your quiet rebellion. It's your stoic strength made visible. And it terrifies them because it proves they no longer have power over your emotions or your future. They watch you from a distance, unable to reach you with their words or regrets. The door you closed behind you isn't just shut, it's sealed by wisdom, resilience, and your unwavering commitment to yourself. This departure was never about them. It was about you. About reclaiming the sacred space of your mind and heart. About walking forward without bitterness, without anger, but with an unshakable peace that they can neither touch nor understand. And in that peace, you become untouchable. You become the living proof that true strength lies not in holding on, but in knowing when to let go. This is the power of Stoicism. The power to move through pain with dignity, to rise above betrayal with grace, and to find freedom in the quietest of goodbyes. Your departure is a lesson they can't erase. A silent echo of the love they lost and the strength they underestimated. It is the boundary you set, not with noise or fury, but with the calm certainty of someone who has chosen themselves above all else. How will you carry this truth moving forward? How will you honor the quiet strength that led you here? The final departure is not an end, it is the beginning of a new chapter where your peace is non-negotiable, and your worth is undeniable. This is your story now. Not of loss, but of liberation. Not of sorrow, but of sovereignty. And that is a story worth telling, even in silence. 4. The regret that haunts in silence. Have you ever considered how regret rarely arrives in a storm, but rather creeps in like the slow, persistent drip of water wearing away stone? It doesn't roar. It doesn't announce itself with grand gestures. Instead, it settles quietly, embedding itself deep within the mind and heart until it becomes a constant companion. This is the kind of regret that haunts in silence. The kind that those who mistreated you now carry, long after you've chosen peace over pain. In the world of Stoic relationships, regret is not just about missing what was lost, it's about the painful recognition of what was never truly valued when it was right in front of them. They didn't just lose you, they lost access to a rare, sacred presence. One that wasn't loud or demanding, but steadfast and true. How often have they found themselves staring at the empty space you once filled, struck by a sudden wave of realization? How many quiet moments have they spent haunted by memories? Your laugh, your subtle gestures, the way you saw them when no one else did? It is in those moments of solitude, when the distractions fade and the world falls silent, that the weight of their choices presses hardest. This regret doesn't seek to punish you, it punishes them. It is a mirror reflecting the depth of their loss and the emptiness their neglect created. Have you noticed how those who once ignored your needs now struggle to find comfort in the noise around them? No matter how many distractions they seek, nothing fills the void your absence leaves behind. It's a void that reminds them daily that they mistook your loyalty for weakness and your patience for permanence. And now, with nothing left to hold on to, they realize that the version of you they took for granted will never return. The power of Stoicism lies in the acceptance of impermanence, knowing that what is truly valuable cannot be forced or reclaimed once it has been given up on. Your quiet departure was their final lesson, though they may not admit it. It taught them that love and loyalty are not guarantees but gifts, rare and fragile, and when mishandled, they break beyond repair. What haunts them most is not your absence itself, but the peace you found after leaving. The transformation they didn't expect, the healing they never imagined you capable of, and the strength that replaced your silence. They are haunted not by your anger, but by your calm. Not by your bitterness, but by your growth. The contrast between the person they lost and the person you have become is a silent wound that cuts deeper than any argument ever could. They replay moments in their minds, wishing they had listened when you warned them that their behavior was pushing you away. They remember the times you forgave what should not have been forgiven, and the love you gave when it was easiest to walk away. But wishing changes nothing. Regret doesn't rewrite history. It only reminds them of what they failed to protect. And as you continue to rise, that regret grows heavier. Have you ever noticed how some people seem haunted by a presence that isn't there anymore? That's the energy of the past, trapped in the echo of your absence. It's the realization that the stability and loyalty they relied on were never endless. And when you finally stopped giving, they were left with the harsh truth: you were never replaceable. Your loyalty wasn't a weakness. It was the foundation they built their lives on and then neglected. Now, the silence you left behind is deafening. In moments when they are alone with their thoughts, when the mask of normalcy falls away, they feel it, the ghost of what you were. And it is this ghost that haunts them with questions they don't want to answer. What if I had treated them differently? What if I had seen their worth? What if I had stopped taking their love for granted? These questions don't come with answers, only the heavy burden of knowing that the cost of their arrogance is irrevocable. The regret that haunts them in silence is a reminder of the power you had, and still have, over their peace of mind. And it terrifies them more than any confrontation ever could because it means the influence they once wielded is gone. In Stoicism, the greatest lesson is often this: the true punishment for those who harm us isn't revenge, it's our indifference. When you left, you didn't just take your presence away. You took your energy, your grace, your light. And with it, you dismantled the illusion that they had control. They expected you to crumble, to fight, to make noise. But instead you chose peace. You chose to walk away without bitterness or malice, and that choice is the legacy that haunts them. This silent regret forces them to confront their own flaws, the entitlement, the neglect, the cruelty they once dismissed. And no matter how much they try to rewrite the narrative, the truth remains clear. They lost someone who was irreplaceable, someone whose loyalty was a sacred fire, not a disposable flame. Your absence is their reckoning. It speaks volumes without a single word. It's the quiet, unyielding truth that they cannot escape. And while they are trapped in this cycle of regret, you are free, free to live without apology, free to love without conditions, free to honor your worth with every breath you take. This is the power of Stoicism. To transform pain into wisdom, loss into growth, and absence into peace. As they sit with their regret, you continue forward, stronger, wiser, untouchable. They are haunted by what they lost. You are empowered by what you found. If this truth resonates with you, don't forget to like and comment. 1. To share your support and subscribe for more wisdom on navigating Stoic relationships and the path to self-mastery. Together, we can rise above the noise and walk the road to true freedom. 5. The healing they never expected. Healing is often mistaken for weakness, especially by those who thrived on your silence and your sacrifice. They expected you to remain broken, to stay small, to be tethered eternally to the pain they inflicted. They believed your loyalty was a chain, and your heart a cage. But healing, true healing, is neither loud nor vengeful. It's a quiet revolution that grows from the deepest trenches of despair and rises beyond the reach of those who once thought they controlled you. Have you noticed how healing transforms the very essence of who you are? It doesn't erase the scars. It honors them, allowing them to tell a story of resilience rather than defeat. In the aftermath of betrayal and neglect, healing is the most radical act of self-love, a declaration that you will no longer be diminished by their choices. This healing they never expected is a testament to the power of Stoicism, not to suppress emotion, but to channel it into growth and clarity. As you heal, you stop seeking validation from those who refuse to value you. You cease begging for attention from those who never truly saw you. Instead, you begin to build a life rooted in authenticity and peace. Have you felt that shift? That moment when the weight of their rejection no longer drags you down? When you wake up and realize that the air feels lighter because you are no longer carrying their burdens? This is the rebirth that haunts them. Because while they expected you to stay wounded and dependent, you found strength in solitude. You discovered the sacred space within yourself that no one else can invade or diminish. This healing isn't a performance. It's not a loud declaration or a show of defiance. It's a steady, unwavering calm that radiates from your being. The kind of peace that unsettles those who once held power over you because it means they no longer control your narrative or your emotions. They watch from a distance as you reclaim your joy, your voice, your purpose. They witness your transformation, and it terrifies them because it shatters the illusion that you were broken beyond repair. How often have they wondered silently why you no longer respond to their attempts at manipulation or guilt? Why you no longer search for closure in places where none exists? The truth is, healing gave you the clarity to see what they never wanted you to see, that your worth is inherent, not conditional on their approval. They mistook your patience for passivity, your love for weakness, but healing revealed your true strength. It showed them that you were never the victim they painted you to be, but the survivor they underestimated. This is the quiet power of Stoic relationships, to find peace not in the presence of others, but in the mastery of oneself. You learn to protect your peace as fiercely as you once protected them. You learn to set boundaries where there were none, to say no when you once said yes out of obligation or fear. And as your light returned, they felt it like a distant storm, unseen but undeniable. They tried to dim your radiance with reminders of past pain, with excuses and lies, but healing rendered their words powerless. Have you noticed how healing makes you untouchable? Not because you are unreachable, but because you no longer allow their negativity to penetrate your armor of self-respect. You became calm in the chaos, steady in the storm. This transformation is a rebuke to the false narratives they told themselves, that you were replaceable, forgettable, or undeserving of love. But healing is a flame that cannot be extinguished by neglect or cruelty. It is fueled by the recognition that you deserve better and the courage to claim it. They are haunted by this healing not because they regret your departure alone, but because it signifies your reclamation. Your refusal to be broken has rewritten the story in ways they cannot undo. They are left with memories of a version of you that was willing to suffer in silence, while you stand as a monument to resilience and growth. This is the ultimate lesson of Stoicism, that suffering can be transformed into wisdom, pain into power, and loss into liberation. Your healing journey is not linear. There were days when the wounds reopened, nights when the memories threatened to pull you back into despair. But each time, you chose to rise again, stronger and clearer. That persistence is your greatest victory. It's the kind of victory that doesn't announce itself with fanfare but reveals itself in quiet confidence and unwavering peace. It unsettles those who expected you to break because it shows them that true strength is not loud, it is profound and enduring. How will you continue to honor this healing? How will you hold space for yourself as fiercely as you once held space for others? The healing they never expected is your daily practice of self-compassion, your commitment to truth, and your unbreakable vow to never again shrink to fit the expectations of those who never truly saw you. As you continue this journey, know that your peace is your power, your calm your rebellion, and your growth the ultimate victory over those who tried to keep you small. This healing is not just your survival, it is your triumph. 6. The irreplaceable presence lost. Have you ever noticed how some people believe the presence of those who love them is endless, like the sun that rises every morning without fail? They assume that no matter how poorly they treat you, no matter how often they take your kindness for granted, you will always be there. But what happens when that presence, once taken as a given, disappears completely? What happens when the quiet strength that anchored their lives is no longer accessible? This is the haunting reality of losing someone irreplaceable. The profound void left behind is not just physical absence, but a spiritual emptiness that no distraction or new relationship can fill. They might try to convince themselves otherwise. They might fill their days with shallow conversations, fleeting pleasures, and superficial connections, but deep down, the comparison is inevitable. No one listens the way you did, no one understands the way you understood, no one holds space like you held theirs. This void becomes a silent witness to their negligence, a reminder of the treasure they squandered. The tragedy is that they only realize this after you have gone forever. This is the cruel paradox of Stoic relationships. Those who mistake quiet loyalty for weakness discover too late that what they lost was rare and sacred. Your presence was a sanctuary, a steady light in their chaotic world. You didn't need to shout to be heard, your actions spoke volumes. You showed up when no one else did. You forgave when others gave up. You stayed when others walked away. And in return, they offered you indifference. How often did they mistake your patience for passivity? How often did they dismiss your quiet strength as something insignificant? The irony is that your very silence was the loudest testament to your loyalty. But they never heard it. And now, when they search for that same grounding energy in others, they find only echoes and shadows. They come face to face with the truth that you are not replaceable, not because you were perfect, but because you were genuine. The authenticity you carried, the depth of your care, the unwavering presence you offered cannot be replicated or replaced. They chase after new faces and new distractions, but none can fill the space you left. This absence is their reckoning. It is a reflection of their own failures, their inability to cherish what was real in favor of what was convenient or superficial. They once held your heart as if it were limitless, assuming it would never break, never tire, never walk away. But the heart, even the most loyal, has boundaries. And when those boundaries are crossed too often, the heart closes off, not out of bitterness, but out of self-preservation. What remains is a quiet emptiness that haunts every victory, every conversation, every solitary moment. They feel your absence not just in the spaces you once filled, but in the energy that no one else can match. The laughter, the understanding glances, the emotional safety, they were your gifts to them, and now they are painfully aware of their loss. This is the essence of Stoicism, recognizing impermanence, accepting that some losses are irrevocable, and understanding that true presence is a sacred offering, not a given. The people who truly value you are rare, and those who mistreated you are left with the consequences of their disregard. They might try to rewrite the story, telling themselves you left because you changed or gave up. But you know the truth. You left because you finally started valuing yourself the way they never did. You reclaimed your worth, your dignity, your peace. And in doing so, you became untouchable. Your absence is the loudest lesson they will ever learn. It is a reminder that some souls come into our lives not to stay forever but to teach us what it means to be truly seen and valued. Losing someone irreplaceable is a painful truth, but it is also a call to growth, for them and for you. For them, it is a wake-up call to examine how they treat those who love them. For you, it is a declaration of sovereignty, a refusal to settle for anything less than respect and reciprocity. As you continue to rise, they are left to live with the regret that no apology or explanation can undo. They watch you thrive from afar, feeling the sting of what they lost, while you walk forward in peace and strength. This contrast is unbearable for them because it exposes their own shortcomings and the magnitude of their loss. Your healing, your joy, your calm, all of it becomes a mirror reflecting their failure to cherish something precious. This is the ultimate victory of Stoicism. Not revenge or bitterness, but becoming whole despite the pain, becoming free despite the wounds, and standing tall when others expect you to fall. You didn't leave to punish them. You left to save yourself. You chose to protect your heart and honor your worth. And now, as they sit with the echoes of your absence, you walk forward with a heart that no longer bends to cruelty, a mind clear of doubt, and a spirit unshaken by regret. This is your story now. One of resilience, wisdom, and unstoppable peace. If this resonates with you, please like and comment. Number 1. If you enjoyed this video, and subscribe to join our community exploring the strength found in Stoicism and Stoic relationships. Together, we embrace growth, clarity, and the power of self-respect on the journey to freedom. Thank you for being here, and may your path be filled with peace and unwavering strength. The journey you have undertaken, from enduring silent betrayals to finding your quiet strength, is nothing short of a profound transformation that embodies the core principles of Stoicism. It is a journey marked not by dramatic confrontations or loud declarations, but by the steady, unyielding cultivation of self-respect, clarity, and inner peace. You have learned that loyalty is not an obligation, but a sacred trust, that love, when unreciprocated, is not a measure of your worth but a reflection of their inability to see it. You have discovered that the absence of those who once took your presence for granted can become the most powerful teacher, revealing truths about yourself and others that no amount of anger or sorrow could ever expose. This path is not easy, for it demands that you face the pain of loss with courage, confront the illusions of false attachments with wisdom, and rise above the chaos of betrayal with grace. Yet, in embracing these challenges, you have become a living testament to resilience. The strength you now carry is not loud or ostentatious. It is the calm certainty of someone who has been broken and healed, who has been lost and found, who has loved deeply and learned to protect that love by first loving themselves. In the silence that follows your departure, you have created a space where peace flourishes and self-worth is no longer negotiable. This peace unsettles those who expected you to remain broken, because it is proof that true healing does not require their validation. It is a liberation from the past and a declaration of sovereignty over your own life. The regret that haunts those left behind is a shadow of your growth. It is the quiet echo of a love they never valued until it was gone. While they wrestle with what they lost, you walk forward with a heart unburdened by bitterness and a spirit unchained by resentment. Your story is no longer defined by their actions but by your response, the deliberate choice to rise above pain and reclaim your narrative. This is the essence of Stoic relationships, understanding that while you cannot control the actions of others, you hold absolute power over your own mind and emotions. It is the realization that self-respect is the highest form of loyalty, and that sometimes the greatest act of love is to let go. As you move forward, your journey serves as a beacon for those who find themselves caught in similar cycles of hurt and hope. It shows that leaving is not failure, but an act of wisdom, that silence can be louder than anger, and that peace, not revenge, is the ultimate victory. In this transformation, you become a reminder that healing is possible, that growth is attainable, and that freedom is within reach for anyone willing to embrace the lessons of the past without being bound by them. Your story invites others to reconsider their own definitions of strength and loyalty, challenging the misconception that endurance at all costs is virtuous. Instead, it offers a new paradigm, one where boundaries are respected, where love is mutual, and where self-worth is the foundation of every relationship. This perspective, rooted in Stoicism, encourages a profound shift, not just in how we relate to others, but in how we relate to ourselves. It calls for honesty, for courage, and for the relentless pursuit of peace amid life's inevitable storms. And so, your journey is both an ending and a beginning. It closes the chapter on what was, with all its pain and neglect, and opens the door to what will be, a life lived on your own terms, marked by authenticity, dignity, and unwavering strength. As you continue to walk this path, may you carry with you the knowledge that your worth is infinite, your capacity for love is profound, and your right to peace is undeniable. The silence that once signaled your departure now resonates as a powerful anthem of freedom and self-mastery. And in that silence lies the greatest triumph of all, the unshakable understanding that you are whole, you are enough, and you are free.